Hello, and welcome to Pyramid Energy, a journey through intuition, wisdom, and loving insight. My name is Gontse. If you've journeyed with me before, welcome back, and thank you all for being here with me. We are in the process of manifesting rapidly, even now as we move through this manifestation portal. I say this because I've been monitoring and observing this movement through this portal, all the things that are coming up, and something that has come to my attention through this is perhaps at times the lack of awareness around the fact that we are all moving through this portal. This is not something I've heard before. I've not heard this somewhere. It's as if portals are optional. Okay, so it's as if we tend to be put under the pressure of time, suggesting that we may miss this portal, or that the opportunity to move through this portal, that it can be missed. Pretty much that it can be missed. And so then that leaves the option of either moving through it or missing it. But there's a third option. The third option is that you're moving through the portal and you're not aware of it. And you need to be aware that irrespective of how you're feeling and, whether your feelings, you experience them as good or bad. And I don't use these words often, good or bad, because again, that's projecting on the experience based on our perspective. And so what is coming to my attention is that we need to become aware that we are moving through this portal, okay? We are deepening. And what's being experienced is the same thing, being this depth of manifestation. We are all experiencing the same depth of manifestation, just perhaps with a different perspective of it. I've seen this through a lot of my downloads in the past couple of days, and I'm going to share quite a chunk of that with you here. It's an interesting topic, I think, for me, at least. And I've also seen it through this somewhat up and down, because what happens is that when we move into even further into the depth of a void, the void in this sense representing this unknown that is either ahead of us or that we are immersed or have dived into. Okay, so this unknown space, this void that contains everything. I've been through something like this, similar to this before. Again, this is just at a deeper level. But in this case, this is very much a lot to do with coming into union. And so that's union between the masculine and the feminine. However, this time it's happening from an inner perspective, the perspective of your inner aspects, your inner divine feminine and inner divine masculine. But it's also happening on a material level. And so what I mean by this is that all of our inner manifestations are now beginning to reflect without. And I don't know how much content you've consumed of late around events with the collective, but I've come across a lot of discussion around the inner masculine arriving, finally coming up to say something, all of that. And to that, I'd like to say yes, but also that it may not be presenting in your life as a person, another person. But again, we're talking about as within, so without. And so you're given the option of having these things become created in your physical reality or not. And so you want to honor all of the areas that you are creating in. The reason it's so important to be cognizant of the fact that you are moving through this portal irrespective of whether the things that you are creating are coming to life or not. And so here I'm speaking to anyone who feels like they've been left behind, feels like the things that they are creating are not coming to life, or feels like literally the opposite, that the opposite is happening. And so I'm speaking to everyone, and including those of us that feel like things are happening. This is to bring to your awareness that you are moving through the portal irrespective of your perspective. And what that means is that the depth at which you are manifesting is deep at the moment. It's deep and it's rapid. And I believe that's the reason why I'm being taken through so many of these downloads. Some are like, the one video I posted was about passion. The video that I would have posted by now, and I'm coming out of that video as I speak now. The video that I just posted is on anger. Only at the end of that video did I realize, wait, anger is a form of passion. And so I'm being taken through the various perspectives of the same portal. Now, in the background of all of this, I was taken through, I don't know whether I should call it education, shared wisdom, on the Sacral Chakra. This began through, how would I put it? This began through taking me through these 7 chakras that I refer to. So I know there are way more than that, but I've never gone beyond the 7 in terms of even wanting to dive into their wisdom and using them, whatever, so they perhaps continue to do what they do. However, I work from the 1st to the 7th. And they began to rename these 7 chakras one by one in a different way. So I understand that there are Sanskrit words for each chakra. We have the English words for each chakra, but they were giving me more description through renaming them. And what's interesting here is with the renaming and with a lot of other information that I've been seeing through my downloads around the senses and all of that, what I'll do is I'll link all the related videos underneath in the description box for you to watch if you want to listen. But they've been highlighting the masculine and feminine aspects of all of these things. So the masculine and feminine aspects of our senses and the masculine and feminine aspects of these chakras. And the one that was being brought to my attention here in this group of downloads is the Sacral Chakra. But before I get to that, I want to address the solar plexus, okay? This is our chakra where we show up, our personal power and all of that. And I believe that's where this information around anger was coming up, where anger was asking to be sat with and been with. And I went through this without any conscious awareness of my own anger, okay? And we went through it, and through the video transmuted this into forgiveness. And as I sat and contemplated this video that I shared, I started realizing that last year sometime, we moved through a major portal. It may have been around Lion's Gate. It may have been around then. I don't remember clearly. But I'll link it in. And the title was, Without Forgiveness, We Are Going Nowhere, my friend. And I remember this being a time of great anticipation in terms of, again, we're moving through a portal and expecting either the fruits of our manifestations or other revelations coming into our lives. But that there was this gate called forgiveness that needed to be walked through in order to realize these things, which has made me realize or think about how creation is translated into the material world. and not just into the material world, even if it's on an emotional level or whatever it is on an energetic level. The sacral chakra is where we create. It is the creative chakra. However, it doesn't work alone. It's part of this 7 chakra system. Again, 7 limited. I'm limiting this to 7 for the purposes of how I communicate. And so it moves upward through the sacral chakra. From the sacral chakra, it needs to move through the solar plexus in order to move through the heart and then be expressed. Okay, and these chakras, they work upwards and downwards. They don't work in one direction. But if we think about something we're actually expressing to the world, that is created and then expressed to the world, the way I see it, it actually moves from the top to the bottom, and then let's say from the 7th chakra, the crown, to the root being the first, to the 6th being the third eye. I'm going up and down now. To the sacral chakra being the 2nd, then to the throat, to the solar plexus, and then it all somewhat meets in the middle at the heart. And so it's always happening up and down, and like the snake, you know, like that medicinal snake they show us, like a kundalini, it goes upward in spirals and goes downwards at the same time. And so what happens is that when we get stuck in, sometimes we feel stuck and sometimes we're not aware that there is somewhat of a stagnation. This affects the heart's balance. It affects our overall harmony. And it affects the quality of what we're creating. And so this is also how we end up manifesting something, okay, something. Either the thing we've wanted, or better, or something that falls short of what we wanted, or something that is the complete opposite of what we asked for. And so we tend to not link that type of thing to being of our own creation because it doesn't look like what we wanted. And I believe this to be caused by not being completely aware of our responsibility to honor even the things that are taking place outside of our awareness. And so I'm going to get into the sacral chakra, which they named as the sacred chamber. But before I get there, I want to say that because this is the zone of creation, where we're actually creating, where masculine and feminine meet and create, it sits so close to the solar plexus. It's right under the solar plexus. And so if we are holding a lot of fear and anger and the feelings that we don't prefer to have in the solar plexus, if we're holding a lot of that, that then begins to send information to our creation to create in that vibration and in that way. And so it's through emotions like anger and these negative solar plexus feelings that our manifestations are sometimes informed. I've also come across a lot of new types of offerings to help with rewiring of the brain, which is actually somewhat of a rewiring of our beliefs and our perspectives. And they've been very helpful in terms of highlighting where beliefs need transformation and just reprogramming what's actually going on in my mind. But in the process of working on this reprogramming, what happens is a lot of things are beginning to manifest that, for example, I have not called. And so this advice, this content that I've come across really helps in terms of confronting these manifestations, whether it's a past person returning or if it's a manifestation that's not coming in the form that I requested, for example. It's helping in terms of recognizing my response and inviting my personal power in to manage my response so that I can now engage in the reprogrammed program. But the way it's often explained is though these things come up as tests. That's something I've run on for a long time, that these things come up as tests. And I'm not going to dishonor them, I'm going to honor them, because that explanation is very helpful. But what I'm seeing now as I sit in this container is that I'm seeing that these things are of our creation. They are of our creation. And they mean something to us. Okay, so that, I'm just saying that it's obvious, but they do mean something to us because we recognize them either as being what we want or what we don't want, or as not enough, or as just falling short. So we recognize these things, and so we're aware that we created them. But then we call them a test, as though there's this external program that is set to test us. When actually I believe that we are just being invited into the awareness that this is what we've created, and that there's something else that we need to have a look at. Chances are sitting somewhere around the solar plexus where things show up, okay, where we show up and how we observe the world and our filter of how we see things, okay? So I believe that's where we're called to clean this space up and to bring it back into balance and harmony, even in areas where we lack full awareness of what's going on. And the reason I say that is that while everyone listening here is very self-aware, okay, we're all very self-aware, but we all go way deeper than our awareness can reach, okay, in our conscious waking life. But we are given tools to clear this up and to restore ourselves and to restore this energy center by giving the heart access to all of its information. To an extent, I'd actually say that some of this content, again, so educational, very valuable information, but it takes place at a very, I want to say, cognitive and mental level. So it asks for me, and I took so many notes on like reprogramming these thoughts and these beliefs and these mindsets and perceptions. I took lots of notes down, but what I found was that they were taking me out of my heart because it's all on a very mental level. However, I don't believe that true transformation can happen only on a mental level. And so it becomes very masculine. It becomes very masculine. And so when something presents itself in front of me, it's almost expecting me, okay, the way I've understood it, it's almost expecting me to deny the feelings that are coming up, okay, in this moment, to deny the feelings that are coming up and to override these feelings with a mental program that remind me to keep moving forward and not succumb to the running programs that keep me serving the old paradigm. Please let me know in the comments if you've come across any of this content. It's powerful. I'm not going to deny how powerful it is. However, I will, at least from where I'm sitting right now, deny that it can all happen on the mental level, because we are made up of both masculine and feminine. And this is what has been coming up for me the most, is almost like the division of these two aspects, to be able to see them clearly and how they're playing out, so that we know which parts of us need to act and which parts of us need to receive. So not so much in this general sense of the sun and the moon and this wider sense of manifestation and the interplay, but rather the two aspects, which I believe can also be so powerful for someone who's new to this idea of manifesting. Now, to set the tone for anyone who missed this reading, it had a lot to do with mindfulness, where we really went deep into mindfulness, and it split 3 of these senses up for me. These senses were hearing, seeing, and feeling. Hearing being the feminine passive aspect of listening, which is active and masculine. Seeing being the feminine aspect, passive, of looking, which is active and masculine. And then feeling being the passive and feminine aspect of touch, which is the active masculine aspect. They also brought believing and knowing, believing being active and knowing being passive. Okay, so masculine and feminine. But when it came to the sacred chamber, and I'll go back to the beginning of this download, but when it came to, I keep talking about the beginning of this download because this is the most awkward download I've ever received. And I'm trying to find a way to share it here on YouTube without taking it to Patreon as an extended because of the language. But I'm going to try my utmost, and I'm dedicated to sharing this here with you because I believe that it's important information that everyone should have access to if they wish to. And I will figure out how to get around some of these words without having my YouTube rules transgressed. But when it came to the sacred chamber, they split manifestation and creation into masculine and feminine. So creation being the aspect that's masculine, and manifestation being the aspect that's feminine. But that even in the process of creating, what needs to be brought to our conscious awareness is that we are manifesting in the process of this creation. So passively, we are manifesting. So you do not only manifest what you wish to create, it then becomes an entire thing that we manifest through even what we feel and even through what we unconsciously believe. And I believe that that's why it's so important not to bypass our feelings, because feelings override everything. And the bypassing can work, okay? So it can work on a level. But if we want to create something that is true, both the feelings and the more mental masculine aspects need to be seen to. And I felt that very much as I went through the video I recorded on anger, because I was not actually experiencing feelings of anger when I posted that video. It's something that came to my attention outwardly, and then I created a container for it because I kept being reminded about it. And in that container, I began with you to honor anger as it comes up, to honor pain as it comes up in my world. And so not necessarily internally triggered, but certainly internally manifested. And given that we are all connected, part of one collective experience, part of creation, part of co-creation, that if I'm presented with anger, there's a part of me that recognizes it, and this becomes an opportunity for me to sit with it and play my part, since I'm already here, in transmuting it through forgiveness. And what I found through clearing this forgiveness, I found something that I never thought I'd find. I thought I would be there in that container to help someone else. But what I found is a deeper forgiveness for myself. I found a power to assist others with forgiveness. And what forgiveness does is that it keeps the heart open. And when the heart is open, all creation can flow upward and be created even faster and more in the vibration of what it is that I want to create. I'm saying this because there's something I'm doing today that I believed for a very long time I could not do. I'm doing it in this moment. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I'm recording 2 videos right behind each other. This has been a very big point of contention between spirit and I. I'm just sharing this. It has really been. And I believe that our things that we want to create are all very different. And we encounter very different obstacles maybe along the way. But this is something that maybe I've brought up before. I don't know if I have. It also came up in that video I referred to around the scarcity mindset, around time, money, and our personal power. Again, all linked below. But the fourth thing that I forgot to mention with that is energy. This belief that energy is scarce. And so we don't actually mentally believe that energy is scarce. We know that our access to energy is there, okay? We have access to an infinite amount of energy. We know this, we experience it. However, we often hear how people can suck your energy and the need to preserve our energy and all of that. This can also result in this understanding that, or rather it reflects an understanding or a belief that our energy is limited, that there isn't more. And I completely honor the fact that we need to guard our energy. I do believe that, and we need to guard it. But more than that, we need to believe that it can be replenished and that we have the power to replenish it instantly. And it's almost like it's kind of like a reverse thing, and the words are not coming clearly to me now. But it's as if we slow our own energy production generation down. We slow our own energy generation down by allowing entities that live within us to continue living in us, the ones that require more energy to run. We allow these entities to exist and live within us outside of our conscious awareness. These are the ones that are easier to deny than to make room for and open our hearts to. That was a stream of words that came through. I'm looking at a corner of a wall and I got those words. And I thought I was going to trip. This also came through in the anger video, and this is not something I articulated there. But what I saw was someone walking up a mountain. They're climbing up a mountain. And they've got a bag on their back full of stuff they have not actually looked through. And they're carrying this bag on their back. And as they move forward, they're allowing other things to be added to that bag. Given that you see this bag, it's actually like also attracting stuff. So it's got its own ability to accumulate its own stuff. And you're facing forward, you're climbing up a mountain, and you're not realizing that your weight is progressively getting heavier as you move up this mountain. Because you don't want to slow down moving up the mountain, you're not even aware that you're moving at a slower pace than you need to move. And it feels heavier. And you need more rest. And you need more pauses. And you have a longer time to look around and look at how far you haven't progressed rather than how far you have progressed, because you haven't stopped to open the bag and offload. What stopped me in this download, I sat down to write. And the word sex came up very clearly, just like that, except pronounced properly, not spelled out. Okay? And they described this word as meaning a sacred exchange. Okay? Sacred meaning sacral, divine, and creative. This first letter of the word sacred combined with the first two letters of the word exchange. And it was clear, and the other word is expression, but this is now how it actually ends up being created. But what was being brought together here was the idea that this chamber, if I look up the word chamber, It means a room used for a special or official purpose, or a group of people who form a parliament. And so what this was bringing up for me is that this room is sacred. This room has very important things that happen within it, between these walls of this room, and that it's an official place. And by official here, I want to say it's a place where we commune with the divine, where everything is established, where everything is decided. And so this is to say that irrespective of how we treat the chamber, it is still a sacred chamber. With this download, they also said the kiss of God. Okay, and they showed me the yin and yang symbol. And when I see the yin and yang symbol, it immediately takes me into creation and takes me into the various aspects of creation and how they work together, how they play with each other, and how their ability to manifest and create are deep, infinite. And what they said to me was, this is how the senses intersect with God. A magical experience, bringing what can only be felt through God to earth. A personal and subjective experience, encountered and felt within. Very, very sacred. And so what they said here is to choose your partner carefully. As I lean into the word partner, I am obviously brought to the physical manifestation of a partner. Okay? However, this is also to speak about the masculine elements of this. So this is to say, our intentions are important. And to approach this process, not the process of being in it, but the process of how we approach it mindfully, because when we go into it, when we enter this chamber, we are carrying a lot more than what we are aware of. That applies to us, and that applies to our partner. And they said, because it opens a portal, and in that open portal of creation, so much is exchanged, some way beyond what your understanding can grasp. This container is sacred, and therefore also calls for the safety you seek as you learn to contain energy and trust information. Both parties need to be ready for what the container will reveal, and be aware that it can only be discovered within it. This is what we call making love. This was all in my download. I'm still going to continue. But I want to bring us back without diluting either ways that this can all manifest. This applies to both ways, the physical and the non-physical. On a physical level, we're referring to the material. We're referring to this act with another person. And what is being shared with us here is that within this exchange, there is a lot that we bring in to the container. There's a lot that we present through our own sacred chamber, through our feelings, through our beliefs, through everything. We bring this into this exchange. And while you know yourself and you're aware of your journey and all of those things and what you bring to the chamber, you don't have an awareness fully of what the other person is bringing in. However, what's very important to recognize here is that in this act, you are exchanging, okay? And you're not just exchanging, you are creating something. You are creating. You are. And this understanding has been explained to me in other ways. Again, it's one of those topics we sort of skirt over and we don't really go in and really understand fully what's taking place, which is also what allows us to not treat it with the sanctity that it asks for, that it demands. It actually demands the sanctity if we are to take and get out of it what we want. So we can't expect to look to the sacral chakra to create what we wanted to create when we don't treat it and honor it fully for what it is and what it stands for and what is actually taking place there. And I believe we're all adults, and so I don't need to sit and unpack the physical aspects of this fully. But what I'd like to unpack a little bit here is how this manifests for me as a human, where I'm looking at the masculine and feminine aspects of myself, okay, when it comes to the sacred chamber. So what's happening here is that this is where my masculine and feminine aspects go to create, to begin manifesting on my behalf. This manifestation that can only happen obviously also then through my heart, which needs to stay open in order to attract what I want and for it to magnetize even the parts of me and my expression that I wish for. In a sense, my beliefs, the things I know, the things that I am of, the ones that are unconscious and conscious, all of those things are present in my sacred chamber and creating for me. And so I need to create an awareness around what it is I'm bringing into the sacred chamber as I create. And so while I'm not in this moment referring to making love as such, I am. Because I am making art out of love, and this art is filtered through me and through my being. They also describe this as an interchange, this point of us as an interchange, as in a winding part of the channel where the dimensions meet, which then brings to life this idea that there are all of these various dimensions that we're creating at that are then activated. Our ability to access them is activated within this chamber. This also being where we have access to our past, our present, and our future. In this place, time disappears. It feels like it disappears. And so it is like it's presenting itself the way meditation would. Okay? So time spent in mindfulness, it's presenting like that, where you sit for 20 minutes and it feels like way longer. And it's a way of buying time for yourself. It's like that, except you're doing it with someone else. And so, not just that, so much is entering the space and leaving the space. It's an interchange, like a highway where highways meet. And a whole lot is moving, and there's a lot of traffic. There is so much that happens in the sacred chamber than we are aware of. And so partly what's being brought up is the need to bring to our awareness what may have been exchanged in the past with others that we were not aware of. This includes all the things we are not privy to, the things they did not tell us, the things they do not know, and the things they believe, the things they are in the process of creating individually. You're engaging in a process, an act that says you open the door to exchanging these things with this person. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because perhaps at times we're not like completely aware of the responsibility we hold in this sacred chamber. Okay? But more than that, we sometimes find ourselves in the dark, not able to place why certain things occur in our lives. Another way they describe this sacred chamber and the act is as an experiential bridge. When I looked up the word bridge, I found the elevated, enclosed platform on a ship from which the captain and officers direct operations. So this is to say, if we look at especially the word ship being a craft, whatever it is you're crafting, okay? If we look at it like this is to say that you have taken on a co-pilot for longer than the act itself. So someone else has been invited into your sacred chamber to co-create with you, even beyond the act itself. Remember the yin-yang symbol. This is a portal. It's a portal. I pulled some cards to help me understand where we were going with all of this. But as I was doing this, I was asking why? Why is this coming up? And they said, every time you plug an energy leak, more is saved for your container. You've seen this every time you plug a leak, and we are here now helping you integrate the plugging of another. And when I asked Spirit, why are you telling me this? They said, because we don't want you to rush into action. Create collaboratively via your individual expression, learn each other, and observe the result before you create sacrally. And this word also came through as sacredly. Something else that's coming up for me is, although that a lot of this sounds rather strict and not really precautionary, how can I say, it's got a bit of a warning vibe to it. That's not really my intention. My intention is to bring awareness to what is actually taking place as I'm seeing it. And before I opened this container, they actually showed me a hexagon. They showed me a hexagon being a 6-sided figure. When I looked into the symbolism of hexagons, it brought up that it is the shape of the body that is outlined by 2 triangles laid over each other. Okay, so apparently this symbol was also used in ancient Egypt, representing, it says here, harmony, balance, and the union of opposing forces like male and female. It can also signify the integration of the spiritual and material worlds, facilitating smooth energy flow. This to a level is describing manifestation through union, because what happens is that this triangle also represents, let's say, a vision, the stabilizing of a vision. However, both aspects need to come together in their mirrors, okay? And in this coming together, in their opposite positions, you get that shape with the star with the 2 triangles. And so once we join all these points, we then end up with a hexagon. I read more on the hexagon, and it says it has 6 equal sides and is one of the building blocks of life, and one of the principal governing patterns dominant in the natural world. From honeycombs to the center of snowflakes, the hexagon is everywhere. It also says hexagons minimize the amount of material needed, which is why honeybees build in hexagons. A hexagon can also be found in the flower of life. It also says here, the hexagon is rooted in the number 3 in many ways, and ancient philosophers were intrigued by the interaction between 2 and 3. They symbolized it by the image of a marriage, as 2 is even or female, and 3 is uneven or male, to show that the hexagon functions as a stable foundation of which the 2 components support each other mutually. And then after the hexagon, I got the word organic. And when I looked up organic, it says relating to or derived from living matter. It also says of food or farming methods meaning produced or involving production without the use of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, or other artificial chemicals. What this brings me to is that in coming up with this hexagon, so now taking the masculine and feminine aspects, inverse, laid over each other, and then the joining of all of these points representing integration of them into a body, okay, a body that now we're creating from. And it said earlier when we looked into hexagons that they require less of a surface area to create. This information through the hexagon and the word organic is to say that we are being assisted to transform into organic manifestation. I had to ask for clarity when I got here because it just feels like so much information, and I just wanted to check in with the context. And the card I got is nurturing. This is the second time this card is coming up this week, and she's holding an egg. The egg is glowing. And while not focusing on the chair she's sitting on, obviously now weaved out of wisdom, that's how she's gained her stability, is resting on this weaved wisdom that she has created a sense of stability from. For me, that represents the masculine. But this egg that she's holding, everything she's putting into it that's creating that glow as she looks into it, those are the feminine aspects. In a sense, she has no sight of what will hatch from the egg. What she knows is that she needs to nurture herself through resting on this chair, okay? And also via ensuring that her form is in a position to allow her to breathe only what she intends to come of the hatching of the egg, to go through to the egg. It's as if she's speaking to the egg without words. Okay, so her intentions are flowing from her into the egg, and that is what will define and determine what hatches from the egg. And so again, she has no sight of what's inside. She might have an idea of what's inside, like for example, a bird, but she doesn't know what will be of this bird. There's also this sense, to me as the observer of the card, it appears that this egg is to the left. But to her, the egg is on the right. Okay? So this is bringing up something for me. It's as though there are aspects of her past that can be brought into her future, so into her creation. These aspects from the past carried and represented through her feeling and her beliefs. And so she needs to be mindful of where these actually sit, where they are, so that what is then breathed and unconsciously spoken into her egg is aligned with her wishes. And very much the sense that she's drawing from all aspects. She's drawing from the past, she's drawing from the present, and she's drawing from the future to create the future. The next card I have in front of me is a moonology card. It says, New Moon in Gemini, think it through. Then I got the words, this chamber, now we're referring to the sacred chamber, is a source of enjoyment and pleasure. But this card suggests that it calls or warns that it too is double-sided and can be a source of devastation as well. This is a return to duality. The orange in this card, if you look at this card closely, and I'm going to try and make it as large as possible on the screen, but if you look at the way these mountains are laid out, it's almost symmetrical, but they look like the pelvic region of a person's body. There's also something about the coloring of the card with all this purple, with all the stars in the sky there. There's this purple taking me to the third eye. And then also the color, the sacral chakra color of orange being the color of this cradle that's visible on the cards. But if you look closer to the top, where it's quite, it looks vague, but I looked into it. And the thing is that over the moon, there's this sort of translucent figure. It looks like a large man that you can't see the head of, sort of looking down on everything. But because it's a Gemini card, I turned it upside down. Okay, so the first right way up, it sort of represents this benevolent being that's seeing over everything. But if you turn it upside down, it actually looks like a demon. It looks like a demon. So this, more than that, emphasizes this idea of good and evil. These are all the things that can be created in the sacred chamber. And this is again more around intention. This is more around the intention that we enter the sacred chamber with. Again, whether this is conscious or subconscious. The second card I got is last quarter moon in Cancer. Take a breather. If you look at this card, some of the stones, the pebbles or the stones that are in the water are solid, and others seem translucent. This is to suggest that some of the things in your creation have been solidified, but there are some aspects that are still in the form of being created. Not everything is set in stone. And so, as far as how you envision things being structured in your manifestation, there is room for adjustment in your thinking. And that's why they're saying take a breather. If you look at the lady who's standing in the water here, not all the cards have people on them, and for her to be standing alone in the water is a moment for her to take and contemplate her needs. In the midst of all of this excitement, let's call it, to contemplate her needs so that what she is speaking into her future, what she is speaking into her manifestation aligns with her and can keep her in harmony, is aligned. And this includes alignment of her intentions, aligning her intentions with her wishes, the desired outcomes. In terms of these moon phases, I looked up what the last quarter moon actually is. And it says that the last quarter takes place a week before the new moon. So we are preparing to set intentions if we look at this, because next week will be the new moon, the 27th of May will be the new moon in Gemini. Gemini taking me back to the card that came up first, new moon in Gemini. So we are very much in the process of creating, and we are being given the opportunity to take a breath and consider where we are. It also says here, the last quarter represents a reflection, a reassessment, preparing for new beginnings after a period of release and letting go. Which is also very interesting because we just came through the full moon in Scorpio, which represents death and rebirth. And so we have had a lot of letting go, but now in finding our balance, we're being called to engage in a reassessment of where we are now, given that there's a whole lot that we've shedded, a whole lot that we've learned. It feels like a new person. It feels like a new person, and that this new person is being asked to become more intentional now, reset the intentions you came in with, refine them. And this is to ensure that, well, not to ensure, but, I'm just going to say to ensure that none of that past residual is called into the sacred chamber to create with you now. So old structures, old beliefs are not brought into what is being created now. I wrote here, there is a major new beginning upon you, And I'm seeing this through lessons on the Sacral Chakra being brought into the material realm. Something is becoming ready to materialize, and you're being called to take a breather and consider through your heart what circumstances and specifics speak to your alignment and balance. The next card I got is Full Moon in Aries. Cool your emotions. This card for me also confirms the revelation of a new beginning. This being represented by Aries, the baby of the zodiac and the youngest in the cycle. The fire sign says that passion is present, and therefore so will temperance be. So this is to say that, and I mentioned this in the passion video, this is to say that passion can make one want to go and act quickly. But we're being invited into temperance. There were lots of lessons on temperance in that video, and I don't want to rehash as such now. But this is finding balance within the passion and tempering your emotions. And tempering them with everything that you've learned, the wisdom of what you have learned from where you have come from. And this goes back to what I said as well around why are we being asked not to act too quickly in this passion and this excitement and wanting to create. If you look back at this card and the way the moon is encircled, it looks like a target, which speaks to a plan and a need to take action on what arises through impulse, taking us back to, we don't want you to rush into action. So this is not a warning of danger, suggesting that this partner is dangerous or anything like that. It's to bring to your attention that what is coming in is in the process of being manifested. You are manifesting quickly through your beliefs and intentions. And this is referring to the understanding of partner in an open sense. So this is a soulmate. And by that, I mean your divine counterpart, including the one within. This is energy. How you handle your inner masculine sets the intention of the material structures you are in the process of creating. After all, this is the journey of coming into and nurturing alignment. And so, in a sense, what is being created within is what is being created without. As within, so without. And then they said, creation is also two-dimensional. You speak into it, and there is a magic that happens on a side you cannot see. This is taking me back to when I mentioned good and evil, in terms of the card. Which card was it? The Think It Through card, New Moon in Gemini. And it says, behold, this is where the best of all creation is made. And this speaks to the need to not look at only the good stuff. Because it's in combining these two things, the dark side and the light side, that the most complex of creations is made. This is the beauty in the nuance. And these words, even though I'm able to share them with you clearly now, when I was writing them, they seemed so unclear. It sounded like a secret was being shared with me. But how it came through, it felt majestic, it felt assured, and it felt mysterious. And so what it was saying is that there is a secret hidden on the other side of what is received. And this is ultimately where I wrote that creation is masculine and manifestation is feminine. And so when we look at these things, we tend to want to manifest consciously. We tend to want to manifest almost, we bring a lot of the mental into it. But the most manifestation that actually takes place is through the feminine. It's through the darker side. It's through the unseen. And it's the it's the feminine that is manifesting. It's the feminine that is magnetizing. And so irrespective of how many structures you put in place and all of that, the darker aspects need to be seen to as well. Because it's the things in the unseen that are actually coming in. And to finish off my notes, they said, we who are gathered together here create through the sacred chamber, the seat of creation, the Sacral Chakra. I'm going to close this recording here. I'm going to listen to this because I feel like I've been taken through some kind of a whirlwind of a lot of information. But I believe that this information is due and has been coming up honestly because we are creating. We are creating, and finally these things are manifesting in our material world. A lot of which for a time felt either impossible or hard to attain. More and more lately, I'm experiencing these manifestations, yes, in my physical life, but also even more deeply and more clearly in my inner world that's playing out inside and around me. And I feel like all of this information is really around preparation. It's around preparation to look at a lot of the things that we have had a look at, but still absorbed at face value. And to start to unpack the duality of each. Because I believe that some of this information is golden, it's so valuable. And to understand how much of this chaos is also created in divine order, so that we can learn how to stand on it and continue to create even against resistance and even against the obstacles that are placed in our path. I believe it's an invitation to also get to know ourselves better, to get to know the intention with which we were created, so that we can understand the intention with which we need to create. You know, those words just came out and I'm at the end of this video. I believe that what we're being called to do is to really believe in our own divinity and not via concept. You know, this is not an idea. This is not an idea. We are creating. And so now what's happening is that our creations, even the ones we have not wanted to admit are of our own creation, these are being brought into the context of how we created them. Rather than just being told, you created your environment, you created your experience. This is rather to say, this is how you created your experience. And so how are you going to create the one that's coming? How are you going to express yourself going forward? How are you going to, what are you currently in the process of expressing to yourself, and what are you expressing? And also to bring an awareness of how much we cannot see. And so to not dive in head first when it comes to collaborations necessarily, and to check in with how it feels inside. Because there's so much that we will still not be privy to. And so while we're working on our own mental activity and checking in and coming into harmony and balance within ourselves, the importance of this is so that we can tell when an external energy shifts that. Because then to enter a collaboration when you are in turmoil means that you will have a harder time deciphering whether this is good for you or not, or whether this is going to assist you in nurturing the position that you're in and want to see yourself being in. And so then that leaves you at risk of re-entering that cycle of creating in the unknown that you have not discerned yet. And so this is to bring in discernment in our collaborations and a discernment in our feelings and not just around this idea of discernment when someone gives us a truth and when someone actually expresses a truth. This is around discerning in the dark. I believe that's what this is about. Thank you so much for being here with me. I appreciate all of your support. I make an effort to respond to the comments that I receive on the channel. I don't always get to responding to all of them. I read every single one, even the scammers. I catch them out. Doesn't mean that this comment section doesn't have scammers. They are there selling books on manifestation. I just need at the moment to channel most of my energy into creating more content for you. But I do read them. I definitely do. And reading them sometimes is how I engage with my next content. And so I encourage you to continue commenting. I really do appreciate your engagement and your dedication to your healing. I also noticed some pledges on my Patreon. I don't know whether my Patreon invited you automatically to a membership. Please, can you alert me to this, because I haven't set up a membership there yet, because there's no regular content that I have committed to there as yet. So please do let me know. And otherwise, I really appreciate it. I also invite you to have a look at my Patreon. There are not that many readings on there, maybe a maximum of 12. Some are extendeds, but if you read the actual preview, you'll get an idea of whether it relates. And if it is an extended, I will have left a link to the original video on YouTube for you to look at. It's very hard for me to, I'm trying to figure it out, but it's very difficult for me to figure out a way of bringing a lot of my timeless content out back into the present. How I do it sometimes is that I'll refer to a past reading that I did. And again, like I said, I think it was in this reading, or I don't know if it was the last one, where I mentioned that it is timeless because it contains wisdom. And so that reading may not have reached you at that time, but I've found that some of the most profoundly healing ones were pulled into Patreon, almost to create a smaller pocket to find readings from. The rest I just remember from memory as they come up in my readings. I suppose some of my own clarity will also be revealed with time. And so for now, I stay in the present, enjoying myself as I create content for you, learning from the content that we co-create together, because these are not things that I come up with without this container. Sending you so much love.